Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tech Talk with Sodhi. It's not just another entrepreneurship show. Here, we don't just talk about innovations, but we also talk about the journey, the sacrifices, and the untold story behind the headlines. Well, many of us love music, but very few consider the challenges faced by artists who create it. Did you know the co founder of a music focused blockchain company also once rocked out in a band and still does tours? Well, that's the fascinating story of Jon Zeit. Today, we'll explore John's unexpected career journey from the world of music creation to smart cities architecture to the world of tech innovation. We'll delve into his motivations for co founding VNYLab, how blockchain is changing the game for musicians, and the advice John has for aspiring entrepreneurs with a passion for music. John, welcome to Tech Talk. It's honestly a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Ken. It's an honor to be here.
It's always exciting to have a conversation with you, John. I mean, the love for music that we both hold and the love for entrepreneurship, I think that's where we really connected. And I'm glad that you could take out the time. But to kick things off, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your journey that led to co-found VNYLab? We're really curious to hear your story.
Absolutely. And, having the passion for entrepreneurship and music is a dangerous combination. It's a labor of love, if you will. So I founded VNYLab with two of my co-founding partners, Nikki Fernandez and Wes Mason, and we came together in 19, decided to really start the company to try to shape a aspect of the industry. But it started so many years before that. I went out on my own around 2016, 2015. And that was all predicated upon building my career up in operational technologies. And then I had a really life-altering moment when I lost one of my friends. And he had left me a note before he had left us that basically told me to aspire for more and that he could do it. And it was the motivation that I needed. And it kind of sent me on my journey. And this friend that I lost was also my drummer. I toured all over the country with him. So it only was fitting that it would land in music, even though it took a lot of twists and turns along the way.
Right. I'm really sorry for your loss. But to be honest, we're very glad to have you in the entrepreneurship world and a part of the startup ecosystem. Being a musician, we're very glad that there are people like you who are working towards the music industry and making it kind of evolve along with the innovations that are happening all throughout, the startup ecosystem in the world. You started your career in a totally different field, but your career trajectory really demonstrate a consistent focus on empowering artists. How has your approach to supporting artists evolved throughout your ventures from NSF now and DI Creative to VNYLab?
I've always worked with artists. I kind of lived a dual life as a touring musician and a recording artist, and then I worked in technology and just kind of hoped they would converge one day, and that convergence did happen. But through that whole time, I would always try to empower every artist around me and, get them to create and not worry about kind of the nuances of the industry. Because that's what I had done, and it led me to my definition of success, which was getting to tour all over the world and having to pay minimal for it or not at all in some cases. And so once these worlds converged, I found that I had a skill set that was desired by artists because they had all of these different technologies that they could use and they could pull from, and they didn't know who or what platforms to trust because they've had a lot of issues going around. I mean, I remember when Facebook and Instagram come out and you build your following, and then all of a sudden the switch is flipped and now I have to pay to reach this audience that I had just built up. So trust was eroded over time, and I would start getting the phone calls of, hey, what should I do here? Or what's the best platform to use? Or how can I how can I achieve or retain independence through leveraging these tools? And around the time that all of this converged, which was really when NFTs started coming out, and there was a lot of confusion around like, okay, what is this? Should I do this? Should I not do this? Is when I had met my partners, Nikki and Wes.
Very interesting. But in your experience, being so close to the artists and seeing, the issues and the challenges that are there in the industry, what do you think are the biggest challenges that artists face when it comes to turning their passion into a sustainable career?
Yeah, so my answer to this is going to be from personal experience and not necessarily directed at any specific artists that I've worked with, but it's typically themselves. We like to focus a lot on the artist's view of themselves and their mental health. We have this concept that every artist is three different things, right? They're the creative, they're their brand or their business, and then they're themselves. And somewhere along the artist development path, a lot of folks lose one of those pillars of whether they lose themselves, whether they lose their creativity and they fall into a block, or whether they lose the ability to balance those two and actually focus on a business. So that is, in my experience, the biggest hindrance to artists turning music into a career.
Right. And I also remember in our previous conversation, regarding the business, you mentioned that there were certain challenges that were related to the skills and the partners that you worked with. Could you share a story about a time that shaped your approach to tackle these problems?
I remember now. This is a perfect example of when you are blocking yourself, because the concept of somebody being their own worst enemy has been around for a long time, right? We typically block ourselves from success. In my first venture, when I went out on my own, I tried to do everything myself. I was confident. I would, I'm going to do this. I had people that were rallying around me, but no one that was really helping, right? They were just like, yeah, you can do it. And there was a lot of puffery around. And so because it was myself, I didn't see a changing in the environment and put us out of business. And so that was a very painful time. And through reflection on that, I had realized that I lacked the skill set in certain areas to really achieve the goals that I was looking to achieve. So from that point on, once I had identified, like, okay, this was me, this was my fault that this failed. It wasn't, yes, it was the environment. Yes, it was the shifting technology, but it was my fault because I should have had the people around me that could have seen this coming. From that point on, I went and I worked with a lot of different startups. And the way that I would go into them is I would identify a founder or an executive within the startup that had a skill set that I was lacking and said, okay, well, I can either put someone in my network that has that skill, or maybe I can learn that skill. I'd always recommend the first version of that because we can't know everything. So it's always better to have somebody to call than to try to know everything. But I went through and worked with a number of different startups and worked to gain those skills and gain that network. And then when Nikki and Wes and I came together, I decided, it's time to take another stab at it. I'd had a ton more experience. I had a much bigger network. And the first thing that we decided on is once we got the plan cleared to go forward from legal was, okay, we need to build a team. We need to build a rock star team because we need people around us that know their areas more than we do. Like we have to embrace that. People regularly don't embrace the uncomfortable feeling of having somebody tell them what to do or that they're wrong. Now, I love every day. I hope someone tells me I'm wrong every day, as long as they come together, come saying I'm wrong with a plan, right? That's what I strive for.
I'm sure it must have been tough to see a business fail, but I think if you're aware and you're not just stuck in your own vision and mind, I think you can really learn a lot from that, and you can learn a lot about yourself and then integrate exactly the right people, the right skill set, the right resources within that vision. So could you help us understand a bit more about what you're trying to do for the music and the artist industry through VNYLab, and what's the vision behind it?
The vision behind VNYLab has been to create a platform where it can bridge fans and artists in new and creative ways, as well as traditional ways. So the plan started when I was working with Nikki, and she had brought up that she used to play concerts that were very intimate concerts, and she would start playing a chord progression on a piano, and she would let the fans guide the song. And people love it. I've seen her do it to this day, and it's incredible the amount of engagement. The people that are just sitting in the audience will toss out ideas and try to direct this song. And we said, wow, what if we did that in a digital way, right? What if we did that where artists could invite fans to join an experience where they get to help in the writing process, and they get to see we can manage it all digitally. And at the end of the process, the fans would actually get recognized as co-writers on the song, and they would get ownership of the song. That's where blockchain pops in. We'll track all of that on blockchain. And if people want to understand the Web3 functionality behind it, they can. If they don't, that's fine as well, as we're designed to ledger every. So that plan started going forward. We started developing that. And along the way, we had met a gentleman who is now our partner, and he had spent 4 years developing a just behemoth of a music platform. Covers everything from digital asset management, automated emailing. It has its own portals that can be viewed via the web on your desktop, through an iOS app, through an Android app. You can sell your music. It reports the Billboard. It has full e-commerce on it. And it also does the accounting and splits for music sales on it. So when we had been introduced, we saw that there was a natural fit to take that functionality and build ours into it. And we merged as one as of March of this year. And we are now kind of redesigning everything and reimagining the user experience around that platform to bring a all-in-one space for artists to be able to connect with their fans and run their business.
That sounds brilliant. I mean, it's a very holistic space for a lot of musicians to get whatever resources they need and to get in touch with their fan base and really get an interactive way of engaging with the fan base. So,
and when artists use the platform, they own their, right? So we can't take it away from them, and they have a choice whether they want to be platformed or deplatformed. So that's a big trend right now, is people having a lack of trust of if they're going to be listed on a platform. So we give them the options. You want to be listed on our platform for the fan discovery? Yes, cool. No, fine. You can use the tool set without it. We're a company that all of our executives are artists themselves. We're for artists and it's by artists.
I would love to be a part of the community as well. But beyond artistic talent, what key business skills do you believe artists really need to cultivate to especially thrive in today's creative landscape, where an artist is expected to do end-to-end everything: produce the song, edit the videos, promote the videos, write content, build out a marketing strategy. So what do you think is, one of the most important key business skills on that front?
It's a really good question. And I think that there's a lot of different answers that you'd find from different folks. But from a touring musician's perspective, I think that a lot of artists have lost, I don't know, maybe not lost, but they've let it slide that they have to go out there and play. They have to go, like, you are your product. Your art is your product. Again, there's the three pillars of the artist being the creative, the business, and then the person themselves. So the creative is the one that creates all of the products, and the business has to get that out there. You have to go play. And I think that a lot of social media has almost discouraged artists from going and playing, because what happens is I go on social media and I can reach a global audience. And so now I get 10,000 followers, right? Which in the scheme of the population of the world is very, very, very many. And so I go get 10,000 followers and I feel great, right? I release a new song. People say, that's awesome. I love it. Great. But man, my career is not really going anywhere because I just have these 10,000 followers. Well, what happens when you go book a show? How many people show up? That's what we need to judge the career on. You need to go out and you need to shake hands. Like when I was coming up in music, all we did was play live. I mean, we didn't even have a record when we started. We just played live, got a decent fan base. And then we made the record because now we had people who wanted to buy it, not just people that wanted to click through and hear things for free. So I think the grit, being able to take those losses when you play a bad show, is lacking. And I also think that the amount of information we're receiving from people who want us to use their platforms is making the environment increasingly confusing of what should I be doing? What should I be doing? And at the end of the day, you should be playing.
Right. being in this whole space of music and business, I'm sure you must have seen a lot of companies and trends that are emerging in this whole intersection of art and business. Have you seen any specific particular trend that you see really going and building a future for these musicians? Of course, VNYLab is one of them, but was there an inspiration that you got from somewhere, or did you see other businesses that were doing something that would be very beneficial for artists as well?
So the inspiration came from a knowledge of people. When we sat down and looked at it, like, I think that people look at fans as consumers or customers far too much, and they forget that they're people. And what do people want? People want connection. People want a sense of community. So I think that anything that can foster the connection between an artist and a fan and create a sense of community or assist or augment that community will be successful. I don't think that that's a trend. I think that that's just going on basic human principles of people want to feel connected with these artists. They're being over monetized in every turn. Everywhere I look, somebody's selling me something and there's zero connection to it. It's just like shoving product down my throat. So as a fan, so how are you as an artist connecting with me? Do you have a community around you that I can feel like I'm part of? Anything that works in those spaces will have a good chance of succeeding, in my opinion.
Right. That's definitely a vision we all can get behind. And really, for our listeners, Jon, I mean, we're really trying to be aspiring entrepreneurs. Now we're shifting from the whole musician thing to entrepreneurship. I mean, if you could have a conversation with your younger selves, just starting out, what would you wish that you knew then that you know now?
Don't put so much of your self-image in successes or failures because they're temporary. All of them are. So
Right.
I think that
Wow.
we tend to look in the mirror and define ourselves by those things, and it's not the right thing to define yourself by, because it's just going to make the waning successes and inevitable failures more painful. So
Right. But anything else that you think you had a big personal takeaway from your own experience? I mean, definitely that was one of them. Is there any other advice that you might have for entrepreneurs?
yeah, find something to get behind as far as what you're doing, and make sure that everything you're doing is based on a mission that is bigger than yourself, because it gets really hard. And when it's just focused on yourself, it's going to be easy to stop. But when you have a goal that is mission critical, whatever that is, you found a problem and you want to solve it with your technology or your service, or you see an industry that's not working as efficiently as it could be, so you want to solve that. Any of those types of issues are good to get behind. If you're going into entrepreneurship because you want freedom or a paycheck, it might not be the route to go.
Very insightful. Jon, I know this time it was quite a short conversation, but just before we kind of end things, when are you playing next? When are you performing next?
I don't know if this will be released in time. I got 2 shows I'm playing this weekend, actually.
That's brilliant.
One in Youngstown, Ohio, one in Cleveland, Ohio. So
Okay,
it's
that's
double duty with 2 different bands. Then I should be announcing a show in New York and New Jersey in the middle of the summer. So not quite announced yet.
It's such a pleasure to speak with you, Jon. It always is so enjoyable. And honestly, thank you so much for this enlightening conversation. Your story is a testament to what can be achieved with a bit of passion and a purpose-driven mindset. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been really interesting, and I really look forward to having another conversation soon.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure, Karen.
Thank you. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Tech Talk. Jon Zeit's journey is a powerful reminder, again, that no matter the odds, the determination, and with a clear vision, it's really possible to make a significant impact. So be sure to check out VNYLab and follow Jon's continuing journey. I will leave the link in the description for VNYLab. See what they're really doing. But until next time, keep innovating, stay curious, keep making music, and keep talking tech. Thank you so much.